Good afternoon, New Orleans, or wherever you may be. It's Wednesday at 4 o'clock, so this must be the Baldy and The Blonde show. I am your bald host, Tom Coates, and actually your blonde host, Michele Godin. She's not in the studio today. She's hanging out with the Godin clan at some unknown location, and she'll be joining us on the phone here in a minute. I've been to some of the Godin events, and they usually have about 200 or 300 people there. At least it seems like that. And they got a bunch of guitars, dogs, kids, noise, your mama, whatever. So hopefully Michele can find a place that's not too crazy. Michele, are you? Oh, I hear you. You are there.
You definitely described it correctly.
All right.
I am sitting in my car as close as I can get to Mr. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite so that you can hear me.
Well, so far you're coming in okay.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm happy to hear it.
Now,
happy Thanksgiving to you.
Well, and
everyone.
Same to you and all the 4 million listeners we have.
That's it.
Now you
go to Paloozas.
Mm-hmm. I understand you went to, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this much. You told me a little bit about it. I was invited to this event. I couldn't make the event, but it sounded like something. It was really cool, really interesting in Metairie on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh, just yesterday. Oh, wow.
Yes,
anyway,
yeah.
So I'm going to be hearing most of this for the first time. The little bit you told me sounded fascinating. So why don't we just open the show with you regaling us about your experience there? Tell us what it was and what you saw and heard.
I certainly will. Well, yesterday I went to a luncheon. Jeff Crouere was one of the co-hosts. It's called the Home Defense Foundation. And I'm pretty sure that group, which I don't belong to, but I was impressed, I think I might join. I think they teach people how to use guns and how to be safe gun owners, and I think it might even be for free. But anyway, the reason I was so interested in going is there's a judge that I've talked about on this show quite a bit. And he really is a national hero, and I'm just so proud that he's from Louisiana. His name is Judge Terry Doty, and he sits in the Western District Federal Court in Louisiana. And the reason I've talked about him on the show is because we have focused a lot on the First Amendment, and especially the right to free speech, which has been under massive assault. Really since the Patriot Act in 2001, but really, really on steroids, unfortunately, under the former guardians of free speech, the Democrat Party. As everybody's probably aware, there was a ton of censorship. I mean, like Orwellian, jackboot censorship of anybody who had a dissenting opinion, let's say about COVID, for example. And we're not talking about your mom and them saying, I don't think the shot's good. We're talking about highly credentialed doctors from around the world, including Stanford, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who, as an aside, has now just been appointed to the cabinet in a position of influence by President Trump. But anyway, Dr. Bhattacharya and another doctor from Oxford, anyway, 3 of them wrote a paper advocating that we just let COVID exposure be rampant, except to those people who are at high risk, because we knew that it wasn't a disease that really hurt kids or healthy adults, but elderly and sickly people. And he said those are the people that should stay home until the pandemic would have eased much quicker, too, with more people getting exposed to it. So that's a long way of saying that was a good example of topics that were very much censored on Facebook, on Twitter, and that was before Elon Musk bought it, and all of the social media.
Let me break in.
Go ahead.
Not only were articles like that censored, but people who posted them were canceled. A lot of accounts deleted.
Absolutely.
It's more than just like they wouldn't allow certain things to be posted. It's that plus a lot more.
You're absolutely correct. People were taken off of social media for life, like Alex Jones. I don't know, a lot of high-profile people were just not allowed to post. And then, going even to things like the Hunter Biden laptop, which we all know that when those 51 so-called defense experts put out the statement that they went to Twitter, they went to Facebook, the government went to social media and said, do not post stuff about this. They censored the oldest paper in the United States, the New York Post, founded by Alexander Hamilton, that came out with the Hunter Biden laptop story, which wasn't about Hunter, it was about Joe. It was about Joe and his criminal dealings. At least there was a basis for that in those papers. Anyway, they censored all of that. So, I mean, what else, Tom, besides, COVID? I mean,
Well,
absolutely. You're not even allowed to talk about the censorship.
well, yeah, exactly. They sent her to talk about the censorship. But tell us about the
Yeah.
case titled Missouri versus Biden.
Aha. So some plaintiffs filed the case, and it's called Missouri versus Biden, but really it's Missouri and Louisiana versus Biden. And this was a suit filed by Jeff Landry when he was AG and Andrew Bailey when he was the AG of Missouri, seeking, and they filed it in Louisiana before Judge Terry Doty. Cases are randomly allotted, and he got it, and he's the speaker at the luncheon I went to yesterday. And he wrote a 155-page opinion. I've read parts of it. I think it's worth revisiting it. Basically, at the end of the day, he said, this is censorship. The government is telling social media what to censor, how to censor, and that violates the First Amendment. And I'll just read you how I just love this opinion. He starts with, I may disapprove of what you say, but I would defend to the death your right to say it. And he then goes on to say, this case is about the free speech clause in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. If the allegations made by plaintiffs are true, this case arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in U.S. history. I mean, as strong. So
those are strong words.
Really strong words. This is a courageous judge. This is a judge who is unafraid. And his speech yesterday was not about this case or any pending case, because judges are not allowed to comment on, actually they are under free speech restrictions.
Ironically.
They actually can't talk about cases that are pending before them. But he, it was really revelatory because he just spoke eloquently and extensively about the history of the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, which, by the way, I did not know this started off as the Third Amendment. But anyway, and he was so impressive to me. And he spoke, just passionately about our rights. And, federal judges are usually very restrained, and he was, like most of them, but you could tell this was very important to him. And he commented about how close this country came to losing our free speech. And, I just don't think we can be grateful enough at Thanksgiving for the fact that, regardless of how you feel about the orange man Trump, that our free speech is not going to be under attack under this administration. We have so many ex-Democrats who recognize that our free speech was severely under attack, who came over and are forming a new coalition, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy. All of them say the same thing. They couldn't believe the attack on our speech. And I'm just so grateful for judges like Judge Doty, for the people who are standing up for free speech in America, and hey, we are becoming the majority now. And I think it's a new coalition. And I was just so proud of Judge Doty and the fact that it was Louisiana. And it goes to show you, too, that if you can get your case heard anywhere but Washington, D.C., God help us, or New York City, you might have a fair chance of getting a more rational verdict, right?
Yeah. Okay, Michele, real quick. We have 1:45.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted, and we haven't had a chance to talk much, but I know you have an opinion on or something to say about the recent dismissal of Trump's federal cases.
Yes, I do. And so all of the cases that were federal cases being handled by the Jackal Smith, have been dismissed, but he did push for dismissal without prejudice so that he can, theoretically hang the sword of Damocles over Trump's head, that they could still bring this case back when he's no longer president, because he asked for dismissal under the longstanding precedent that a sitting president cannot be prosecuted. Now, of course, he should have dismissed it with prejudice, but I think they just like, using the...
Wait, a lot of our listeners might not know what that means, with prejudice or without prejudice. We have less than a minute, so explain that.
Without prejudice means you can bring it back. So, there's lots of options for Trump, but I just think, this guy's a dog to the bitter end, right? And one of the cases, of course, is the J6 case. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but, I'll just say that we've talked about this before. J6 was not to overturn an election. It was to question the irregularities through the legal process in Congress that day, which the Democrats didn't want people to hear.
All right, I got to cut you off. Sorry.
All right, we'll
Michele.
talk about Agent Bird when we get back.
All right, yeah,
Okay.
Michele can't see the clock. This is Tom Coates, joined on the phone today with my blonde co-host, Michele Godian. We're going to break. Join us on the other side in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the Baldy and The Blonde show. I'm Tom Coates on the phone today with Michele Godian. I'm in studio. Michele's on the phone in some unknown location with a whole lot of Godans and a whole lot of noise, so she's calling in from her car. Michele, you're still with us, huh?
Yes, I'm strategically parked by the Starlink.
Oh, yes, right.
Thank you, Elon.
Well, it seems to be working all right.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you can hear me good.
All right, so when we left off...
yeah, go ahead.
When we left off before the break, you mentioned Agent Bird. I do know who that is, but I'm not as familiar with this as you are. So why don't you back up to where before the break and take it from there?
Will do. So we were talking about the fact that Jack Smith dismissed the federal cases that he had going against Donald Trump. One was the J6 case, which I just wanted to mention that the only person who actually was killed that day was Ashley Babbitt and actually one other civilian. And she was killed by Agent Bird, and it's Agent Michael Bird. And this week, a whole bunch of information came out about his prior misconduct, including, abuse of his position. So I think that there's going to be a little more scrutiny given to how Ashley Babbitt died, when frankly she was just executed. If you watch the tape, she's just jammed up in the hallway. Now, of course, that I'm not excusing the riot or whoever was rioting, but a lot of those people were just innocent and were let in by the guards. The other case that was dismissed against President Trump is the case with the documents which he had under Secret Service guard at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's were, thrown up against the barbells and covered with socks and dust in his garage with his Corvette, open to the public. But he was too old and elderly to be prosecuted. But nonetheless, he is getting us into World War III. So,
well, he's sure working toward it.
Yeah.
Well, or somebody is.
Somebody. We don't know who.
Joe probably
don't know who the president is.
Joe probably has no idea. Turning to a new topic here, I doubt that you've had a chance to review any of these. I clipped a bunch of sound bites regarding controversy over immigration and whether sanctuary cities, the mayors of these cities, will cooperate or not. Some of them are just a few seconds, some are a little longer. I'll play them and just ask you for your take. So the first one is Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She was the first one basically to go public with how their city will not cooperate with ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement.
We have laws on the books that ensure that we do not cooperate on civil immigration detainers.
Okay, so no need to comment on that necessarily, but if you have anything to say, go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to Tom Homan, who's the incoming border czar, and here's how he reacted to that.
Go ahead.
So she helps us, she gets the hell out of the way, because we're going to do it. And look, there's a clear line here, and they can't cross the clear line. I would suggest she read Title 8, United States Code 1324 III, that says you can't harbor or conceal an illegal alien from federal law enforcement officers. So I hope she don't cross that line. They can not cooperate, but there are certain laws in place that they can't cross.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty strong words that if the mayors don't cooperate, there may indeed be in violation. And it sounds like we have a border czar who might actually mean business.
Yeah, this time, as opposed to the last one who was or was not the border czar.
Yeah, right. Right, was or was not.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I mean, right? Oh,
so now here's Michelle Wu after Tom Homan said that, and she's basically reacting to that. Let's see, does she back down or does she double down?
We are not cooperating with those efforts that actually threaten the safety of everyone by causing widespread fear and having large-scale economic impact.
So, no, will not cooperate.
Now, that is crazy, Tom, because that is actually fomenting an insurrection. Because federal government does one of the few things they actually do have sole jurisdiction over is immigration. I know that God knows they're everywhere doing everything, but really the federal government is in charge of immigration, and the state, or certainly not the city, does not have any right to impede that.
Well, and you know what? That's a good point.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the state, but sure, not the city. Okay, the next one, unfortunately, is not a soundbite because the website denverite.com, it looks to me, I should say that a little slower, denverite.com, in case you want to look this up. So they had this interview with Mike Johnston, the mayor, and they had the audio up for a while, but they've dumped it. It looks like it's been deleted. Luckily, they still have quotes from the interview up, so I copied those. I can't play it, but I can read it. He got into hot water because basically saying that he would have the police stand up at the county line to the National Guard. He said, more than us having Denver PD stationed at the county line to keep them out, you would have 50,000 Denverites there. It's like the Tiananmen Square moment with the rose and the gun, right? Well, first of all, the rose and the gun, it's not Tiananmen Square. He's got events wrong. The rose and the gun was in 1967 on a march on the Pentagon. So he's got his history way off. So what is your take on the Denver mayor way one-upping Michelle Wu and talking like that?
Sounds like he's raising an army against the.
Actually, it does sound like that.
That is insurrection. I mean, he is literally. If you go read I mean, I don't want you to do it, but I'm just saying, raising an army of civilians to fight the U.S. Army. Is he insane?
Well, he talked about the police meeting them at the county line, and besides the police, he said there would be 50,000 Denverites there along with him. Not that he would actively raise them. He think that they would just be, I guess, social justice warriors joining him.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Okay, so now, but it's about a day or two after he gave that interview, Mike Johnston, the Denver mayor, actually did walk it back, unlike Michelle Wu. Let me play you this.
Are you open to sending Denver police officers to the county line to stop federal forces or National Guardsmen from other states from coming into Denver?
We have no plan to do that, and we really hope that we don't ever have to do that.
It sounds to me like you're walking back the comments from a couple days ago saying that you would be willing to send Denver police officers.
Would I have taken it back if I could? Yes. I probably wouldn't have used that image because that's an image I hope we can avoid.
Okay, but it did say it.
Wow. You did say it.
I mean, you can say you'd wish you could take it back or whatever, but I mean, he did say it.
New sheriff in town, right? I mean, he's freaking out because he realized somebody must have told him, buddy, here's the law. Take a look. You want to go to jail?
Okay.
That was crazy.
That's a good segue. So let's listen to that.
Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that.
Not afraid of going to jail. Now we have 1 minute left, so let's hear what Tom Homan says about the prospect of this guy going to jail.
Me and the Denver mayor, we agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. It's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. I find it hard to believe that any mayor or governor would say they don't want public safety threats removed from their neighborhoods. I don't know what the hell is going on in Denver, but we're going to go and we're going to fix it.
All right, Michelle, give us your 10-second take.
Well, that guy's not fooling around, is he? You can tell he's a former street cop, right? I mean, along with a lot of other credentials, but hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing. He said straight up, we're going to Denver and we're going to fix it.
That's it.
Anyway, this is Tom Coates
way.
and Michelle Godin. We need to break for a few minutes. Join us on the other side here on WGSO, baldyandtheblonde.com. Welcome back to the Baldy and the Blonde Show. I'm Tom Coates in studio, being joined by phone today. Michelle Godin in her car in some faraway location. I'm not even sure where. But we can hear you loud and clear. That Starlink works awesome.
Well, that Elon, I mean, we have trouble out here in the sticks, but this thing works like a charm.
Sure seems to.
Actually on top of it.
All right, where we left off at the break, we were just talking about some aspects of the immigration crisis and how some mayors in sanctuary cities won't cooperate. And I want to move on to a very important topic, the war in Ukraine. But before we do that, one last headline. You've got to hear this. This is regarding immigration. This is a headline I found. This is from March of 2023, so more than a year and a half ago. Listen to this headline. New York City ICE office, that's the New York City Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, is fully booked for migrant appointments through late 2032.
No.
Serious. Who knows now how long it's booked out, but as of a year and a half ago, it was booked through late 2032. So that's the place to go. If you just go hang out, you can live there for a decade. Probably they'll put you up in the Roosevelt Hotel and feed you and whatever, give you all kinds of cash and phones and computers and massages and everything else. And you don't have an appointment until 2032.
I'm pretty sure that app is coming off as soon as January rolls around and we have a new sheriff in town, right?
Yeah,
the
I
app
hope.
that currently allows you to, like, people have shown how easy it is. You can just make up a fake name, go to the app, sign up, and you don't go through the border. They just fly you to whatever city you want to go to.
First class, probably.
I mean, heck of a deal.
All right.
You know?
Speaking of headlines, now this one is related to the war. This is a headline from yesterday in the New York Post. The headline itself is not shocking, but wait till you hear the headline. I'm going to read you the headline, and then I'll read you an excerpt from the article from the New York Post yesterday. The headline says, Biden makes last-ditch ask of Congress for $24 billion to help Ukraine. Okay?
No.
Asked for $24 billion to help Ukraine, right, on top of all the other money we've given them. Now,
200 other billion.
Yeah, okay.
And all of our weapons.
But now listen to the excerpt from the story. It says that it features $8 billion to fund U.S. company contracts to arm Ukraine and $16 billion to refill U.S. weaponry stock. So who's really getting the money? The headline says Ukraine, to help Ukraine, right? And the story says it's the arms contractors. And that's
on some Boeing stock.
Because it's always the arms contractors.
What?
Always.
Did we ever play?
Even when we're not at war, we still give them gobs and gobs and gobs for our money.
I mean, it's just unbelievable, really. Tom, did we ever play the Eisenhower clip? Beware the military.
Yeah, we did that. Actually, we did that.
Yeah, I thought we did.
I think that last week. Yeah, and he did that actually on his last maybe day or two or three in office when he was leaving office in January of 61, right? Yeah.
I think this is what he's talking about.
Okay, so next we don't usually do this. We cut our sound clips anywhere from a few seconds to maybe a minute. This next one, bear with us. It's like 4.5 minutes, and we're only doing this because it covers a very, very important topic by somebody who really knows his stuff. Wait, Michele, what's the guy's name? Jeffrey Sachs? S-A-C-H-S, I think.
Sachs.
Yeah, now...
So the reason I asked Tom, could we stray from our usual strict practice, is because if we are being threatened with World War III, I think it's really important for people to really know the crazy history of Ukraine and Russia and the situation that we're involved in, which basically is we promise not to encroach on Russia's border, yet NATO and the U.S. keep getting closer and closer and closer, kind of like when Cuba put those missiles for Russia aiming at us in the 60s.
This is not an attack by Putin on Ukraine in the way that we are told every day. This started February 9th, 1990. James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. Gorbachev said that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agreed to German unification. The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994, when Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power. Clinton was the first agent of this, and the expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was a use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president. They swallowed it. They complained. But even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship. Then 9/11 came, then came Afghanistan, and the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you. We understand, to root out terror. But then came two other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-5, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election, and he became president. And in 2010, on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? The U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but the U.S. kept rejecting the basic idea, don't expand NATO to Russia's border in a context where we're putting in missile systems after breaking a treaty. 2019, we walked out of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Treaty. On December 15, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, take the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Announce that NATO's not going to enlarge. Oh, don't worry, NATO's not going to enlarge. I said, oh, you're going to have a war over something that's not going to happen? Why don't you announce it? And he said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. That is under the category of bull, by the way. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world. They turned down the negotiation. Then the special military operation started, and 5 days later, Zelensky says, okay, neutrality. And then the United States and Britain said, no way, you guys fight on. We got your back. We don't have your front, you're all gonna die, but we got your back as we kept pushing them into the front lines. That's 600,000 deaths now of Ukrainians since Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv to tell them to be brave.
Michele, what is your...
I mean, I think, it's Jeffrey Sachs. It's worth looking up because I think that was a great explanation. We just keep violating our agreement, and they don't like it.
Well, and just provoking, and now we are involved in attacking. Because
it's ridiculous. It's incredible.
Those U.S. missiles that were fired, they were fired technically by Ukrainians, pulling the trigger, pushing the buttons, but their systems are guided, but it requires U.S. military personnel. If Putin wanted to argue that he's being attacked by the U.S., he wouldn't be wrong. I'm not a Putin fan, but come on. I mean, I can read the facts.
Well, it's just that there are people that always want to be in war, which is why we have been at war endlessly since the end of World War II, where, we gave up all the gains. We gave over Eastern Europe to, honestly, Stalin killed way more people than Hitler. Not that anybody in that group is any good, but what the heck, So I just, I'm thankful for peace right now. I'm thankful that the American people have rejected war in voting for Trump. But I don't know who the hell is running this country, but the fact that the New York Times is reporting that the U.S. is considering providing tactical nuclear weapons to Ukraine. That is insane, and it is a point-blank rebuke of the vote that we just had. This is a lame duck president, and he has no right to have us sitting at the edge of World War III.
Good point, and well stated. Now, we're down to 30 seconds. I just wanted to point this out. I saw a report a little while ago that when Russia retaliated with their long-range hypersonic missiles. They were not armed with warheads. They were basically just showing what they got, what they can do. If you ask me, Putin has, I mean, I don't like any governments really, but he is showing great restraint compared to what we're doing. We're provoking.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
well, we're going to break. Back in a few minutes. Tom Coates, Michele Godin, Baldy and the Blonde. You are listening to the Baldy and the Blonde show. I am one of your hosts, Tom Coates. I'm in studio. My brilliant other host, Michele Godin, who I'm so lucky to be paired with, is joining us on the phones from somewhere.
An undisclosed location.
Okay.
I'm so thankful to be paired with you as well, Turkey Tom.
All right. For the last segment, I know that you found an article, or well, an opinion piece that were in the New York Times last week, and
It is so sad.
you emailed it to me. I haven't had a chance to look at it much. I went in and I made a few highlights, but I know that you wanted to read through it.
I did. I mean, it's the New York Times, November 19th, by a girl named Naomi Beinart. She's a 16-year-old junior in high school, and it's just so sad because anyway. I'm just going to read it, and we'll just chat about it.
All right.
It was a New York Times editorial by a 16-year-old. Okay.
All right. We don't want to run out of time, so let's get to it.
Here I go. On the morning after the election, I walked up the staircase of my school. A preteen was crying into the shoulders of her braces-clad peer. Her friend was rubbing circles on her back. I mean, come on.
Wow. Sounds like whoever that poor kid was, she had experienced some kind of a trauma.
Well, sounds like it. I continued up the stairs to the lounge where upperclassmen linger before classes. There I saw two tables, one filled with my girlfriends, many of them with hollows under their eyes. There was a blanket of despair over the young women in the room.
Wow. Sounds like the whole place experienced some kind of a serious trauma. All right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And it continues. I looked over to the other table of teenage boys and saw Minecraft on their computers. While we were gasping for a breath, it seemed they were breathing freely.
That's pathetic. Okay, so it's business as usual for the boys, and the girls are gasping for breath. And what did she say? Hollows under their eyes and covered by a blanket of despair. What in the whatever?
Yes. We girls woke up to a country that would rather elect a man file liable for sexual abuse than a woman.
Well, okay, there's your answer. Trump derangement syndrome, TDS for short. But you know what? Let me just say this. She says it was an election between Trump and, a woman, but it wasn't just a woman. It was a specific woman, Kamala Harris, who was a terrible candidate. Because you know what? If the Democrats had run Tulsi Gabbard instead of running her off, she had a chance.
Oh, yeah. She was a great candidate. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Let me continue in the 16-year-old angst. What made my skin burn most wasn't that over 75 million people voted for Donald Trump. It was that this election didn't seem to measurably change anything for the boys around me. Many of them didn't seem to share our rage, our fear, our despair.
Oh, come on. So, all right. So now we have skin burn, rage, fear, despair, actually a blanket of despair, gasping for breath, hollows under their eyes, and the school day hasn't even started yet. Jesus.
We don't even share the same future.
Well, right. The boys are well adjusted, and the girls face a future full of neuroses. Listen to herself. She should just listen to herself.
Continuing, most of the guys I saw that Wednesday appeared nonchalant. A smiling student shook his friend's hand and said sarcastically, "Good election," in the same hallway where I saw a female teacher clutching a damp tissue. Why did it seem these boys were so unperturbed?
Well, because they were unperturbed. I mean, maybe they wanted Trump for one, or maybe they didn't care, or maybe they wanted Kamala Harris, but they're just handling it better.
Well, that's always possible, or they were just playing Minecraft.
Or just playing Minecraft, like boys do.
Like boys do. I worried that my guy friends might only care about women until it conflicts with other, more pressing priorities.
Okay, right. Priorities like which candidate was more likely to pull us back from the brink of World War III, because that's awfully pressing these days.
Yeah, and pretty important to boys, too, yeah.
You're right.
That morning, I spoke with a male classmate. He asked if I was okay. I nearly melted with relief. See? I knew all guys were not ignorant. Then, before I responded, he continued, why, he wondered, were so many girls crying. I stared. I swallowed that familiar lump, and I had one thought. I pray that my older brother never asked that question. How could my classmate not know why girls in his grade were biting their nails and doing breathing exercises in the bathroom?
You have got to be kidding. Okay.
No,
So add nail biting and breathing exercises. So what are we up to now? Okay. Actually, I have them highlighted so I can go back and look. We have nail biting, breathing exercises, skin burn, rage, fear, a blanket of despair, gasping for breath, and hollows under the eyes. And clutching damp tissues. Plus, this kid Naomi seems to be upset that a boy didn't know what the girls were doing in the bathroom, which that's kind of weird. I'm seriously, she said, how can you not know that we're breathing exercises or what? Freaking out in the bathroom, whatever. All right, is there any more? You must have more to that, this thing.
No, that's pretty much it. Oh, wait, no. It seemed that the future was sliding down the sides of our faces. It seemed like our future was sliding down the sides of our faces, and he asked me, wait, why were we crying? Yeah. Seemed like our future was sliding down the sides of our faces.
That's pathetic.
8 years ago, I was too young to feel the full force of Hillary Clinton's loss. Now, at 16, I've had the wind knocked out of me. On that Wednesday, I was flushed with anger, but it was diluted by an even stronger feeling, defeat. I saw it in the eyes of women in my subway car that morning. I saw it in the barista at the coffee shop on the corner, the female security guard at my school, and in the face of my history teacher.
Okay, so now I have, at this point, I have been keeping track. We got wind knocked out of me, flushed with anger, defeat, nail biting, breathing exercises, skin burn, rage, fear, a blanket of despair, gasping for breath, hollows under their eyes, and clutching of damp tissues. This is getting to be like the 12 days of Christmas. Hang on, wait. I got to count these. Wait, wind knocked out of me, flushed with anger, nail biting, rage, skin burned, rage. But okay, this is hilarious. There really are 12.
No way.
There's seriously 12. It's like the 12 days of Christmas.
Well, the TDS 12 Days of Christmas. TDS, Teenage Angst 12 Days of Christmas. I think I could knock that out of the park.
You have 75 seconds to do it if you want to try.
Wind knocked out of me, flush with anger, defeat and nail biting, breathing exercises, skin burn, rage and fear. Orange Man TDS, a blanket of despair, gasping for breath, hollows under eyes, and clutching of damn tissue.
I forgot that the Godins always have guitars at their events.
Always.
And you just whipped that out. Well, I mean, actually...
I can go into jambalaya right now.
The song writes itself.
It does. It certainly does.
That's terrible. It's appalling what the adults have done to the youth. I mean, we saw it in that article. Anyway, we got to cut it off right now. This is Tom Coates, Michele Godin.
everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.